Welcome back to the Jax and Geo show. I have to get this off my chest. I feel like, Jackson,
What?
we're drifting apart here.
Are we?
We're drifting apart. We're far away.
How so?
Well, for folks who are not in studio with us, we have had to move from our regular location, and because of this, I'm at one side of the room, Jax is on the other side, and feeling lonely right here behind the board. Feeling a bit lonely.
I'm trying to think of a song I can meme this with.
Take your time.
Lonely, I'm Mr. Lonely.
I'm going to cry. Better stop there. All right. I'm going to be honest here, folks. We're feeling like ranting today.
Yeah.
You know, we're already coming off the first part of our show talking about Mr. Peanut, the baby nut. I'm not feeling good.
That was kind of a rant.
Yeah,
kind of.
We're just gonna rant for the whole show.
Yeah.
You know, I'm feeling a little. I'm not gonna lie. I'm feeling aggravated.
Are you?
I am feeling extremely aggravated.
Get angry.
I am angry. You know what I want to talk about that's making me mad?
What?
Film effects in movies.
You know what really grinds my gears?
What?
Film effects in movies.
I agree.
But you know more of the subject than I do.
Yes. I'm particularly bringing this up, and I've had this almost, I don't know how I can describe it. And maybe I'm jumping into this, maybe me jumping into this is just a really bad idea. As you know, not a while ago, our last episode of the show, we did a review. We did for the show, we did basically a double feature of media reviews, and Jackson talked about the Indiana Jones trilogy and sequel, and I talked about the Onion movie.
The duality of man.
Exactly. And during Jackson's review of Indiana Jones, and he was talking about the fourth film of the series, which is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That's correct.
You mentioned a specific part of one of the movies, of that movie, that in the opening scene, one of the opening scene, features a CGI gopher.
Yeah.
Absolutely laziness that they couldn't get an actual gopher and they had to animate it. And you know, that really let the synapses in my brain go off. And I started thinking about how much I truly hate CGI in movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say, as much as I hate it, I do think there's some good cases.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to...
Sometimes it's very necessary.
Oh, definitely. But I feel like so much today in movies, and not even movies, but TV, and I'm going to get to the TV section in a bit, so much is sacrificed in a way of like stuff that can be done with actual like resources. And as much as I think that the art of animating and producing stuff on computer is important, and how much I appreciate those who can do it, because I certainly know I can't do it. I've done 3D modeling in the past, but I haven't actually done full-on animating. But there's a little part of me that says it's just lazy, and it's just cheap. The thing, and it's kind of like
There's not
comparing.
A lot of heart put into that.
Yeah, it's just a fact of like comparing things. Like you can take. Are you familiar with the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Yes, I am.
There are two versions of that movie. They're both, in my opinion, they're both excellent films. But there's the original version from, I believe, either the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
That features Gene Wilder as the role of Willy Wonka.
Yeah, that's right.
And there is the 2005 version, which was
Johnny Depp.
With Johnny Depp, exactly. And I believe that was...
And what's his name from The Good Doctor? Oh, what's his name? Hang on. He's in The Good Doctor. And as a part of when I was like maybe 9 years old, I saw him in the Spiderwick Chronicles film.
Okay,
the
yeah,
one
that sounds
film
familiar.
that they made. And he played himself. He was a pair of twins. and he is Freddie Highmore.
That's him.
Freddie Highmore.
And that was a Tim Burton production, if I'm correct. The whole movie of the
Charlie
2005.
and the Chocolate Factory was. Yes.
Not The Good Doctor or Spiderwick.
I don't think Spiderwick was.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Good Doctor is a Tim Burton production.
Is it?
I'm joking.
Let's find out. Don't joke. I want to know. Good Doctor. IMDb will tell me. Hang on. No, it is not.
That's too bad. But anyway, you can compare those two movies. There's a scene in both of them where Willy Wonka brings the children and their parents into the chocolate factory. And he introduces them to this first room, and it's basically this almost like not village, but almost like this countryside made of chocolate.
Yeah.
Like there's the chocolate river, there's like the candy grass, there's like all these trees and stuff made of chocolate. And you're comparing, if you compare the 70s version and the 2005 version, the 70s version looks real because although it's not like actual candy, but it's like physical props that were made.
Yeah.
Physical props that were put together for the film. But in the 2005 version, it's almost all like, I wouldn't say all animated, but it looks substantially fake. Like
it does look like there is. I'm trying to remember the scene in my head. I don't remember there being like any like CGI per se, but there was certainly touching up done.
Yes.
That it looked like in terms of like the contrast of everything. Everything seemed artificially bright.
Yes.
It was very loud.
There were some, because like what's weird is that I'm thinking back to it and I'm thinking that a lot of the scenes were just like dark for me. Instead of being bright, were just like, they had whoever was in charge of color grading on that film was like, went ham on it, you know?
So out of whack.
Yeah, and then I kind of contrast that with what in my head I remember the 70s version looking like, and it's like all colorful. It's like very bright. But that's just an example. That's a very minimal thing. What my point of this rant, there is a method to the madness. I am just kind of upset about the just amount of CGI used in place, because I understand it's expensive to make stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like expensive to, I guess, like you can get a CGI animal or you can bring in a trainer and their dog and they spend 3 hours doing something that can be animated.
Yeah.
But in a cheaper and shorter amount of time. But it's like there's something so cool about being physical, about actually knowing that something's there instead of like it being fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of like the mentality of, I guess this is kind of going off the rails, but it's almost like the mentality of owning like a movie on DVD. You can download a movie like illegally and say you have it, or it's like cool to actually have the physical piece of media in your hands, knowing that it's actually there instead of like something digital. And that's a really weird kind of train wreck of what I'm trying to say, but it's just like, I feel like they've kind of perfected animation right now. They've perfected CGI and they're able to like make perfect renditions of anything. And now movies are just trying to do tons of explosion, tons of that to kind of say, wow, look at the new effects we were able to get.
Yeah.
And it just feels like now, and I feel like I kind of feel stupid saying this, but it feels like now they're just trying to like bait viewers in with fancy effects.
And it seems to be a case of like, oh, we can do it, so we should, which I'm not too crazy about, because I mean, these movies nowadays are making tons and tons of money. If they're not making tons of money, they have a huge budget. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And especially so when it comes to like a complaint that I hear a lot, which I think is totally warranted, is in the new Spider-Man films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, his suit a lot of the time is CGI, and even in the newest one where he's just wearing like a black like stealth suit, it's CGI a lot of the time.
Really?
A lot of the time.
Jeez.
And it's especially the case when he's got like his normal getup on, and the case goes quadruple in like the Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame when he's got like the Iron Spider suit. If behind the scenes he's just wearing like a what is going to be a computer generated suit.
Oh, like one of those net things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's
obviously I'm trying to be I try not to be too critical of that because obviously there's limitations to what you can do. It's just the littlest things are touched up in these films nowadays, and it's just weird, and it's noticeably weird.
I agree with that because it's like they literally in 2004 for 2001 for the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, and the follow-up in 2004, he's wearing an actual suit.
Yeah, it's practical.
So it's like,
and there's multiple too. I think in the third one he has two different ones.
The black one.
Yeah, he has the black suit, and that's practical as well. So is to skip to Spider-Man 3 while we're talking about this. Of course, the main antagonist being Venom, played by Topher Grace. Mm-hmm. He has moments where he doesn't have like his suit covering his face, like the symbiote covering his face, which did call for CGI, because the face, it was an actual face. His lips were moving, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
If not impossible with practical effects. But when it was just his face, Topher Grace's face, it was all practical.
Really?
Yeah, and it was super, super cool looking, and it looked. I can't think of another word. It was amazing, like the talent that was snagged to make that. Sam Raimi's always been a guy. I mean, we touched on this kind of when I was going off about the Evil Dead series.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
He's such a. I don't know if I want to call it old school style filmmaker, because I don't want to attribute the method of practical effects to like old films, because I mean that's what they were. That was their limitation, really, when they were like 20, 30 years ago. But it really shows that he cares for those details, and he cares that they look good. So I mean, you had to use CGI when necessary, and whether or not it looked good, you could throw it up in the air. Again, he has a knack for finding good talent to make the effects look very nice. But he's always been a very realism, he's a guy who wants his movies looking good. And, and they look fantastic. I don't think you can say whether or not the movies are good or bad or not. You know, every art is subjective, but the effects in a Sam Raimi film 99 times out of 100 look fantastic.
I agree. Even in, I believe he was on Spider-Man 3 as well.
Yeah. He directed all.
Even
those.
with the worst of Spider-Man 3, including the Peter Parker phase in the film where he's. How do I describe that scene?
He had his emo haircut, and I know what bit you're talking about. Are you talking about the bit where he's just dancing?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a funny. Sorry, just kind of go off, but there's a funny video you can find of what that would have been like in real life, and it's just him dancing like an idiot with no music. And there's just him like going, like he's like pointing at like women. He's like, yeah, and they're just going like,
oh my god.
You can hear him just going.
I love that.
There's no music playing. It's hilarious.
We're gonna have to go to the negative now because I know there's something you want to talk about, Jackson.
Yeah, I can be pretty. You see, I'm either gonna go absolutely ham with this, or it could be incredibly brief. Excuse me. So very recently, the categories and nominees at the Juno Awards were released. And I'm a pretty exclusive heavy metal guy, you know. I don't discount anything, you know. I'm pretty open to hearing most things, but you know, I don't really pay attention to most award shows. I don't pay attention to the Grammys a whole lot. I check out who they think is the best metal, and I scoff, and then I move on. Same with the Junos. I see who's best metal. I was like, oh, okay. But it's something I can't ignore this. And it's been this specific category. It's been a category at the Junos since, let's see, 2003. Okay? And I think, 2003, this specific category, International Album of the Year. Listen, they have... I don't... Okay, so for a very long time, they've been doing this thing where they shed light on non-Canadian artists.
Okay.
Now, from 1975 to about 1980, they called it Best-Selling International Album, which I don't know why that needed to be highlighted at the Junos either.
That's a very weird title for it.
Then they had International Album of the Year from like 81 to 91. And best-selling album by a foreign artist, best-selling album foreign or domestic for a long time.
Now, do they know if their definition of foreigner involves outside of North America?
It's just outside of Canada.
Okay, so that's
and I need this to be known that I'm not just ranting about this because like, oh, I'm a metalhead and I don't like pop music. Mm-hmm. Because when this category first came around, it was bands like Pink Floyd and Elton John and Paul McCartney getting recognition at the Junos. I hate that too. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's the Junos, Canadian Music Awards. We should be highlighting Canadian music.
I agree.
I'll never understand. They've had this category for decades. And it boggles my mind. Like this year, I think the nominees are like, they're Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande, Khalid, Post Malone, Ed Sheeran. I like Post Malone. I like Billie Eilish. I don't think they should be at the Junos.
Because the problem is, even if they do win, I remember
not
watching
gonna
it.
show
They're not
up.
going to show up, and then they're just going to do they even get the award if they don't show up? Do they just ship it to their house?
I don't know. To be fair, they very well could show up. I don't know. I simply just doubt it.
Yeah, and even what I don't like about the awards is that even the nominees sometimes, like Canadian ones, just don't end up showing up.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of I hate, because I think it's like if you're like gonna honor your country, and it's like, why don't you go get the award? It's like you're kind of saying I'm too good for this. That's like you can show up to the Grammys.
I mean, I try to make sense of it all. Why are they shedding light on non-Canadian artists at the biggest Canadian music event of the year? And the only reason I can possibly think of that they could be doing this is that they want more people to pay attention. And for some reason, they want to fix that problem by giving awards and exposure to artists that don't need it, especially in Canada. The awards, I mean, like, I won't say whether or not they deserve awards or not. That's not up to me. And I already said I like Post Malone and Billie Eilish. But besides the point, what they don't need at a Canadian Music Awards ceremony is exposure. Mm. And you'll forgive me if I believe that exposure at a Canadian Music Awards ceremony should, again, be given to Canadian artists.
I 100% agree with that.
Like I was going through all the categories, and I do this. I do the same thing with the Junos as I do the Grammys. Okay, I got to scroll all the way to the bottom to find the best metal or whatever. Mm-hmm. By the way, the category is best metal / hard music, which is hilariously vague.
It's just a bunch of white space.
But like I go there and I'm like, okay, whatever. It's kind of, I like that nominee. I hope they win, but they won't, and they don't. So I move on, and I live, and I wake up the next morning the same person. Mm-hmm. But that I can't stress nor put it into words how much I hate that. They're not Canadian artists. No disrespect to them, but they're not Canadian. Go away.
Yeah. I feel like it's a popularity contest.
Yeah,
now.
It really is.
Like it's just a bunch of
like I think a couple years ago Taylor Swift was nominated.
Oh, and she won and probably didn't show up. Yeah, that's not surprising. But But those titles for the award back in like top selling international album.
Yeah.
You're awarding the album which sold the most copies instead of like if it's
any
like
good.
Like that's like saying what if they did that in like I don't know the 1930s and Adolf Hitler released a German album and every person in Germany bought a copy of Adolf Hitler sings his favorite German tunes, and would that win the award?
Honestly, hang on.
That's basically, it could be the top selling international album.
Let's see. International Album of the Year. They had that. It was just 1 year. Do you know who won it?
Who?
Vanilla Ice.
Oh my God.
It was so hilarious. That specific year, it boggles my mind that there were even nominees for that.
That's such a...
Okay, the nominees were Vanilla Ice, C+C Music Factory, Metallica, Michael Bolton, and AC/DC.
That is a weird
The winner,
selection.
before you even announced it, was going to be the one that sold the most.
Was this before this was
I
easy
assume,
to look up? Was this before this was easy to like information to find online?
It was 1992.
Okay, so yeah, that'd be information that I'd say would.
That was the only year they had that category, and then from 93 to like 02, it was just called best-selling album, foreign, like in parentheses, foreign or domestic.
That has a lot of what do they call it? White space, like
Yeah.
It's not like. Oh my God! And even that selection of artists that you said, that is a weird selection.
Yeah.
That is a very weird selection. My God.
Like nowadays, I don't know. I don't quite know what goes into it. Like all I know is that it's so hilariously unnecessary.
I think they're just kind of like. I don't know. I'd like to maybe contrast to a good. Well, I wouldn't call it. I mean, it is good in my opinion, but I guess the Canadian Screen Awards is almost like the negaverse version of that, where it actually honors all Canadian. I believe, I'm not sure if they do any international awards, but it honors basically productions and all Canadian actors, and usually CBC kind of like sweeps the competition. Like they kind of like scoop it all up because it's mostly their stuff. Like it's usually they win like comedy and news and stuff. I think sometimes CTV might win something for news, but usually CBC like sweeps the entire board. But it's almost like the negative version where they're the ones who are giving like exposure to Canadians and actually like honoring Canadian acts. And it's like you see the Junos.
Yeah.
It's very, very weird.
One of the things hopefully that I don't find out something that can challenge this. One of the things that I can give the Junos is that they have like a cutoff date for releases that they throw in as nominees. Like, hey, if they didn't come out this year, we're not talking about it because we're talking about the previous year's, releases. Whereas the Grammys, I think, threw in nominations for one Taylor Swift album like 3 years in a row at one point.
So the same album 3 times.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
At least 2, because I remember at one point it was like best, I think album of the year or like pop album of the year, something like that. One of my favorite artists, Florence and the Machine, was getting nominated. It was like 2015, 2016 or something. She had an album out in 2015. But anyways, besides the point, Taylor Swift had a nomination in the same category. I was like, okay, well, she's definitely not getting it out. What's this for? And the album was like 2 years old. I was like,
And I think on that note, we're going to have to end this off at a medium pace.
Yes.
I'd like to go deeper into, I have another next episode. I have a show I'd like to talk about that really dives into this practical effect debate, but I'm not going to mention it now. Any last words before we send off, Jackson?
Highlight Canadian artists.
I agree with that.
At a Canadian Music Awards show. Thank you.
And thank you for listening. This has been the Jackson Geo Show. You can find us on Twitter. Our ad is at JAXGIO. We also have a website which you can find through the Twitter. And the Instagram should be coming soon. And once I pay the fee for the website, we will be on Spotify.
Hey.
So catch us there. All right, we're going to end it off here. We'll see you next week or maybe in 2 seconds if you're listening to us on Spotify right now.
Take care.
We'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses.
Mwah.